On air.
Right. So, I guess the only thing on the agenda tonight is to have a presentation by Mr. Domini on the Southern Maine Regional Center for Visual and Performing Arts. Do I have that somewhere?
That's close enough.
That's
Close enough for government.
Right. And first, we might, do you know everybody up here?
Kind of. Let's go.
Maybe we just introduce ourselves so you know who we are.
I'm Sally Bates, I'm the Executive Director of Seashore Trolley.
Ah, you made it. And just in time is our beloved chair.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Ira Camp.
I'm Sam Hall, retired businessman.
Linda Zook.
If you remember, years ago. Okay, bye.
So I couldn't even cut you off. John Bell.
And Tad
Tad Redway, Town Planner.
Cool.
So, with that, you have the floor, sir.
Well, thank you. I'm Bob Domini, and I'm on the RSU Board of Directors in my second term, beginning the second year of my second term. I'm a local business owner. My family lives in Kennebunkport, and I own a company called Digital Research, which is in the second floor of the Lafayette Center. And we're a marketing research firm, and I moved that and my family here 17 years ago. And so far it's gone pretty well. One of the first people I met when I moved to town was Don Curry at the Seashore Trolley Museum. And on any number of occasions over the last X number of years, we've provided our offices for call-around fundraisers, usually in the month of November. I don't know if you've ever been a part of any of that.
Well, I've only been with the museum a little over a year.
Oh, probably not. But every year we used to get a call saying, okay, time to do our membership call-around fundraiser drive. Can we use your offices? Because they knew we had a lot of followers. So, anyway, I am known for a couple of things on the school board. One is I think I'm the only board member to have gotten 3 thumbs down in one 12-month period in the Coast Guard, which I wear as a badge of courage or something. And the other one is that as part of the Standing Facilities Committee meeting of the RSU, and then also as part of the Kennebunk High School Building Committee for the renovation of the high school, I and a couple of other people have cooked up this concept of the Southern Maine Center for the Visual and Performing Arts. I don't know how much I'm playing to the camera and how much I'm playing to you. Do I need to turn this a little bit? See what I'm talking about?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I think Ira might have more of a problem.
Okay. He's good. I will start by orienting you geographically. Here's Fletcher Street, across the bottom here. Turnpike is that way. Kennebunk is that way. The existing Kennebunk High School would be right here, fronting on Fletcher Street. Right now, as you drove past the high school headed for the Turnpike, you would often see kids playing either soccer or lacrosse in some play fields right here. That would be the location for the Southern Maine Center for the Visual and Performing Arts. A separate municipal building separated from the renovated high school by what we are calling the Arts Commons, and then the renovated high school over here. So now that we're sort of geographically oriented, I want to give you the real nickel version of this concept. The nickel version is public-private partnership in the arts, potential to create a magnet school for the arts at the high school level in RSU 21, potential therefore to attract students and tuition dollars into RSU 21 in an otherwise declining student population, as the premier performing arts center in all of northern New England. I'm quite serious about that. I'll talk about that later. an engine for economic development for the Kennebunks and Arundel. And the fifth penny in the nickel. The proposition from the get-go is that we could pursue this concept if, in so doing, and in getting it funded, primarily with private money, we would actually reduce the cost to the taxpayers of any proposed high school renovation. So that's the nickel tour of what and why shouldn't I object violently, which is the reduce the cost of the proposed high school renovation to the taxpayers. So now,
Are you going to hit on those points a little more?
oh yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Would you prefer to hold questions to the end? Or take
No, I think it should just be really conversational.
Okay,
I have
so
a lot
I'm
of
concerned
boards.
about the ball fields. Are they going over by, in back of the elementary school or somewhere around there?
No, actually not. The proposal is that there's quite a bit of land there at the high school, and some of it is undeveloped. The athletic fields would be, as part of the proposed renovation, essentially completely redeveloped. They would be superior to any assets that we have now at the high school. It's worth going through this. The football field itself would be resited. I don't have that plan.
But it would be in
That's-
back of that parking lot, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
so it's still gonna be on grounds?
It's still on site,
Gotcha,
all of it.
gotcha.
And the football field would be relocated. It will hopefully be a turf field, so it will be not only football but soccer, which means a little bit larger, surrounded by an 8-lane track, which means that we can do district and statewide meets. We don't have that capacity now, and adequate bleacher space. We would also have 6 good tennis courts, as opposed to basically playing in the broken up asphalt that we currently play on. And then we would have all of the softball and baseball fields that we currently have with overlays for lacrosse. And all of those fields would be configured in the proper direction in terms of sun at likely times of play. So it would be an overall incredible improvement,
Yeah, no.
all on site.
And that's within the new renovation, that's what
Yes,
that's part of?
That's a part of that will be a part
High-
of the proposed high school renovation project, which will be a bonded project paid for by the taxpayers, unless you know somebody who wants to buy us a turf field.
Wish I did.
I'm thinking weirs.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
I don't know.
Get below it.
Just pops up. So, okay, we've gotten through no loss of athletic fields.
Okay,
Other questions at this point?
no,
Okay, cool. I'm just going to kind of flip through some of these and give you some imagery. This would be the sort of main entrance. This is the Arts Commons area here where you can, in the foreground that separates this from the high school proper. And you sort of see people kind of milling into the main entrance. The student entrance is over here, so that going back and forth, the students who are taking any sort of an arts class, whether it be art, music, dance, anything like that, would experience all of those classes in this building, out in the high school proper. That is the reason that we were able to make the proposition that we can lower the cost of high school renovations, because we've essentially taken all of that stuff out of the high school and said we'll make it part of the Southern Maine Center, and we'll seek substantial private funding to do it. If you put it all back in the high school, it's going to make the high school renovation proposal richer than it is today.
Does the current proposal include upgrading facilities for the arts, for the students?
Yeah, this.
No, I mean the present high school plan.
This.
For right now, the present high school plan, I believe, includes that.
Right.
Oh,
The present
okay,
high school
okay.
plan, as we speak, is to do a high school renovation with all of the arts assets in this building.
Okay.
That would be, when I say substantially privately funded, this is costed out at about $25 million, and we would look to RSU 21 for an approximate $5 million contribution, doing lesser quality arts assets in the high school building itself would probably be about double that. I'm talking about band room, chorus room, practice rooms, 500-seat theater, which is substantially smaller than this is, and none of it as good.
Yeah, that was really what I was asking.
Right.
That the current plan for the high school would upgrade the arts, but not to the extent that you are proposing for it.
Well, no, we're still not clear. The current plan for the high school is a high school renovation which has no art rooms in it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking to my group to succeed in raising the money, along with the high school's $5 million contribution, to do this.
Okay.
And at this point, that's our only plan.
Okay.
Since
Okay.
having a bunch of alternative plans kind of makes it look like
You're not sold.
we were not sold and we're sold.
Okay.
So this is what we're doing. And the new chorus room will be here, the new band room will be here, practice rooms, theater, black box theater, and on and on and on. Which I guess means we ought to move along to at least the first floor plan, and perhaps some of that will be clearer. The olive color is essentially the assets that would support RSU 21 educational programs. We have 1, 2, 3 art studios here, band and orchestra room here, along with practice rooms, chorus room here, and those 2 music education studios are separated by offices and music libraries and all that good stuff, and then a dance studio here. So this is the core RSU educational programs, along with radio and videography studios here. High school currently has a radio station. Most high schools of our size can do basically television, or if not television, do some sort of videography, student short films, programs in film. So then,
Is there any audio recording in there at all? Or?
yes. Yeah. So then the sort of centerpiece then of this Visual and Performing Arts Center would be the main theater here. And this is a 900-seat theater on 2 levels. There's a balcony level, which is right behind this. So we have about 600 seats on the main floor, about 300 seats in the balcony. The key point is that from the get-go, we worked on this now for 18 months, we developed this project in consultation with every significant arts organization in all of Southern Maine. And the reason that we did that is, A, we wanted to know whether any of them thought it was a good idea, and B, we wanted to know whether any of them would partner with us to make this a more viable place. And that's probably enough. What we found was, 1, arts organizations say, well, that would be terrific if you build a 900-seat professional theater half a mile from the turnpike, 25 miles south of Portland. We'll be there, because there isn't anything else in Maine. Even the things that we all think of as being wonderful and adequate, most arts organizations do not really think of as being wonderful and adequate. And it was a sort of surprise to me to go out and ask them and get that answer.
Like even the Merrill Auditorium?
Even the Merrill Auditorium. You sit down and Port Opera just finished its summer production a week or so ago. When we sat with Port Opera and they went through all the things that they would want to have, and we took copious notes and blah, blah, blah. At the end of that conversation, it was sort of like, well, if you actually created a facility that had these things, we'd probably rather do the opera there than Merrill. Because Merrill is really not very flexible. It was built a very long time ago to be a theater concert hall, sort of more than a very flexible venue for lots and lots of things. The orchestra pit's kind of small. It has a lot of deficiencies. I wasn't there.
How many seats are there in the Merrill?
Lots.
12.
Oh,
No.
2,200.
Oh, it's,
2,900.
okay, so this is twice the size.
Oh,
300.
it's huge.
Almost 3,000.
To date, probably our biggest supporting partner would be Portland Symphony Orchestra. They were all over this from the get-go. The essential notion being that, if you build a venue that we can play on in southern Maine, that's just off the turnpike, and it's the kind of place that we want to be, we'll play our season there. So then we worked very closely with Portland Symphony to do things like size the main stage, size the orchestra pit, build a rehearsal hall, or design in a rehearsal hall adjacent to the main stage. And that relationship continues to grow. The artistic director, Mr. Moody, is going to be in actually my offices Tuesday morning, along with their executive director, to talk about ways in which they can assist us in the fundraising phase of this, because they have gotten more and more interested in seeing to it that it actually gets built. And then eventually, I have a brochure that I wanted to leave with you too, but I figured I would just talk and pass it around at the end. You guys can keep it. Other partners include Portland Ovations, and they're the group that puts on all the other shows that you see at Merrill and Hannaford Hall and a couple of other venues. The DuPonte String Quartet. Maine Public Broadcasting System is a supporter, and there are letters of support signed by their senior executive management that are included in the prospectus for this. So we want to give people a sense that this is all, quite real.
Portland Symphony Orchestra has their season, like how often do they play? I mean, well, the students have a chance to use it. It sounds like there's gonna be.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the schedule is with Portland Symphony Orchestra is. I don't know how often they play, so I'm not.
All right. Maybe
I'm thinking it's a lot,
6-7
right?
concerts a year.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's not a problem.
no. Okay.
And that's really a good question. One of the places that we visited was the Spalding Center in Derry, New Hampshire, which is built on precisely this model. It's a public-private partnership where the school works directly with the executive director of the Spalding Center, which is on the school's campus, to make sure that the school gets all of the dates that it needs for the academic year X'd out for the performance space, and we have a second performance space here that I'll talk about in a minute, while at the same time the executive director is managing the needs of organizations like Portland Symphony, like Portland Ovations, and so that they're able to have, in addition to school programs, probably 90 to 100 events a year in the Spalding Center. So it becomes the center of their community activities. And, you can probably go online and see what's playing there this summer, and it's not just, like 7 guys who met and practiced for a while in a garage. It's really quite an impressive schedule of arts and entertainment that's trooped through there. The second performance space is a small black box theater. That's a notion that there's essentially 135 retractable seats. This is the sort of space that you would do a one-man show. Alternatively, in this example, we've proposed that this be constructed with windows so that it can have natural light during daytime hours, so that this can also be used as a corporate meeting facility, since especially during the summer months, this is a very attractive destination, and if you give companies a place to run a 1 or 2 day series of corporate meetings that can seat all their people that's comfortable, what we've heard is that will be very attractive.
Yeah, it's not much of a.
Right. These are what we call the community arts assets. I guess the easiest way to describe that is think River Tree Arts. I don't know how many of you have been involved with them, either through kids or yourselves. But the idea is that community arts programs, including, we hope, River Tree Arts, will be substantially here in the middle of the community, immediately adjacent to where the high school is having school, just down the street from where the middle school is, not too far from the elementary schools, so that we can be bringing in little kids, a high school sophomore or junior that has a trumpet lesson, rather than having to wait till the end of the school day and travel somewhere, can take a study hall and walk across campus and have a private lesson in one of the private lesson rooms from probably the same teacher they're taking the lesson from now, and then go back to class. So the idea is to really make all forms of arts education, whether it's RSU 21 arts education, or community and private arts education, or professional performance, and professional education, all under one roof.
So when you say that you hope that River Tree will be involved in that, have they taken any sort of a position?
I'd call it wait and see. We've had a presentation to their board of directors, and they've been, in one way or another, quite involved with this process from its inception. And they're in an interesting position because they own a building down on Western Avenue in Kennebunkport, and they do what they've been doing for now 31 years. Last summer was the 30th anniversary. What we hope is that this project gets funded, that it moves ahead, and that with that certainty, we'll start to sit down with River Tree Arts and say, okay, now what are we going to do? Because you guys know how to do this, you know how to do the arts education piece, you know how to do the little kids classes, you know how to run a music school. How are we going to make this work? So that's the hope. Other things, this is a cafe area. The intention is that this cafe, which I guess loosely speaking, think Starbucks, would be open most all day, every day, so that again, this facility becomes not just a place where high school kids walk across campus and take an art class or sing in the choir, but this becomes a place where somebody brings a child for a lesson, walks back through the concourse, sits in the cafe, has a cup of coffee, does their Wi-Fi, social networking kind of stuff, right?
So open to public?
Yeah.
How's
Very
that
much
going
open.
to jive with the security issues going on with schools and stuff like
Well, quite honestly, I don't know.
that?
Because, in some districts, you walk around all day and they're worried to death that something horrible is going to happen. Then you go to other districts like Derry, New Hampshire, and that's a multi-building campus, and there's not a lot of security, and life goes on. So I think I don't pretend to or want to sit in the RSU board position of having to figure out how to manage a campus that has two buildings on it. I do know that it has been designed, so this is the student entrance here. It is possible to seal off this student wing with this set of doors, that set of doors, that set of doors, that set of doors, and that set of doors. So it is possible for this to be accessible to students and not accessible by anybody else during school hours. But the essential concept of this place is to make a vital place for students and members of the community of all ages, all day, every day. So by definition, our objective here is really not to keep anybody out, except the bad guys.
I think it's a little different too when you get to high school. They don't have a lockdown for middle schools and elementary
Well,
schools. You know what I'm saying?
I know there was a lot of emails going around about security policy within the RSU after the issues of Connecticut last year. So.
Right.
Yeah, but
And I
that was
know they're trying to.
I don't think that was on the high school level. I'm just saying, I know like
What
my
if-
son's in high school at Thornton.
Just
I think it's a
anybody
good
can walk
question, and I
around.
think it's
Something
just,
that popped into my mind.
it's a good issue. It's a hot button with a number of people. The RSU will have to adequately deal with it in order to gain the full support of the voters, along with another number of other things. It's probably not my personal favorite issue.
I'm not.
But fortunately, I'm one of a board of 12, and we've got a great superintendent, and I think that if we can find a way to fund and build this facility, we will find a way to provide for reasonable security and make every group happy that it is safe and secure, yet at the same time accessible and used, which is what we're trying to do, is to create a place that opens in the morning and is open through the day and into the evening.
What's the red?
This? Oh, administrative offices. 2 stories of administrative offices. A facility like this will have an executive director, and in fact, to the extent that we succeed in attracting some major gifts so that we have sort of a go-ahead to continue with this project, we would probably hire an executive director 2 years before the doors open here. And the reason for that is that if you're actually going to work with Portland Symphony and any other sort of set of professional groups, the bookings happen 2 to 3 years in advance. And we were told over and over again by similar organizations that we interviewed all over the country that the biggest mistake is to focus only on getting it built. And then you open it up on day 1 and you discover that no matter how many calls you make, you can't get anybody to come play for 2 to 3 years because they've all already committed themselves. And so,
How does it look in that far out, Jeff, the students get it and stuff like that? Obviously, they're not going to know when they're doing a play 2 years in advance.
well, in the future, they'll essentially have to. And, you know, of course, the arts faculty, including, you know, Ben Potvin and Nate Menafield, and of course Bruce Louis was the band director there for 30 years, have all been involved in this process, and they're all quite aware that decisions about when to put on the 3 plays a year, the 1 musical a year, the 2 all-band nights, which have historically been easily made from year to year, would probably need to be made a couple years out. And initially, I think everybody thought, well, how do you do that? And then they pretty much sat down and thought, oh, well, school kind of always starts around Labor Day, and we have Thanksgiving and Christmas off, and then we've got a couple vacations in February and April, and it ends kind of in June. So I guess that scheduling 2 to 3 years out really isn't that difficult. It's a different way of working. And it's a way of working, and the trade-off is, if you're willing to work that way, we're giving you the best performance space in northern New England to do your musicals and your concerts and all your other stuff in. You gotta be a little flexible, and there's gotta be a little give and take.
So as far as like paying for the director and the general running of the facilities, is that going to be funded through the events that take place outside of the school?
Yeah, primarily, there's a business plan for this, which I did not bring a copy of. In fact, it's in the process of sort of being finally formatted. The business plan, when you take a read of that, will look like the business plan of any other arts organizations in sort of the modern world. And some of this will be paid for by the RSU because it's using these spaces and these performance spaces on a regular basis. So there's some ongoing obligation of the RSU. Obviously, the taxpayers don't want to foot the bill for all this. They didn't ask for it. So that the business plan shows how the scheduling of the facilities for outside groups actually, and there's 2 ways of doing that. One is just renting, and 2 is what's called presenting. There's more money in presenting, where essentially we say, okay, we're going to hire the Hoozawatsit to come in and do a 3-night run of The Music Man.
Yeah.
And so we'll collect the box office, and we'll pay for the production. There's more money in doing that than there is in just renting space. So it's a combination of presenting and rentals. And then there's a very real need for this to have ongoing private and public support. That is, it would have an annual appeal, like the trolley museum does. Probably have a couple annual appeals. We'll work to create an endowment so that over time we have a significant enough endowment that it can throw off a chunk of change that is, can pay for 15, 20, 25% of an annual operating budget. But we will create it right away. A lot of arts organizations you'll find, particularly smaller local ones, say, yeah, we want an endowment, and then no one ever bothers to create it. And then 20 years hence, they go, well, we're not getting any money from the endowment. Well, we don't have one. So, in our capital campaign materials, right now we're in what I would call the lead gifts phase. Clearly, if this project isn't significantly funded by some very major donors, it will not have legs. So we're in the process of generating those lead gifts. But the second and third phases of the campaign for the project, phase 2 is a community campaign. And this is where we become much more public than we've been to date, and are actually saying, okay, we're going ahead. We got the lead gifts that it will take to build this, and now we want to create ways for anybody in the community who wants to be involved in this to be involved. Want to buy a brick? $100. Want to buy a chair? $300. Because it is important that the entire community buys into this, not just in terms of dollars and cents, but buys in and wraps their arms around it and says, yeah, this is something that we want to have and is a point of civic pride.
Just, what is the time frame for it to be built, completed, that kind of stuff, like, estimated, obviously?
Yeah. We hope that we'll be able to make the decision to proceed with this, along with, or even potentially in advance of, the high school renovation project, so that the doors to this could open in April, May of 2016.
And when is the renovation supposed to be?
Well, that's a bond issue.
Right.
So hopefully that bond issue will go to the voters in the 3 towns in November or January, November of this year, January of next year, and that if we can get a positive vote by the 3 communities, that there would be then a period of 8 or 9 months of intense planning, architectural drawings for not just the high school renovation, but probably this building and Consolidated School and Buckport. And then probably groundbreaking in September, October of 2014. So a year and a half then of construction.
So has it always been just, you said $5 million that the taxpayer was putting into this?
Yes.
That's,
Well, it has to be a vote.
no, but I'm saying, but that's all that
That's
is
been the plan
required.
all along.
Has that been the plan all along?
Yes.
It has, okay. So there's been a lot of misconception that they're expecting the town to pay for this whole thing.
No one's ever asked the town to pay for the whole thing. The idea was, frankly, my personal idea,
Okay.
and sitting on the high school building committee and being a member of the school board, part of where this idea came from was, okay, will you let us being a group of civic-minded people who care about the arts, will you let us try to do this? And our proposition is, if we succeed, we'll lower the cost of the high school renovation. We'll ask for $5 million, whereas we know that to do lesser quality assets as part of the high school renovation would be more in the $9 or $10 million range. So that's why we were allowed to proceed, is that our proposition...
Obviously, people have taken it and, they've said whatever they have wanted to make it,
Right.
it's so ours.
You know
We're
what
not going to
Mark,
go backward. Huh?
you know what Mark Twain said about it?
What did Mark Twain
Get
say?
your facts first, and then you can distort them as much as you want.
Well, there's a lot of people that didn't have their facts first, and a lot of people believe that that's taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Okay, they believe that.
I mean,
So
they're blogging about it as we speak.
exactly. So, do you have a plan to get the word out to the community so that we can't, I mean, because you have to, they still have to vote on it, even though it's only a
Right.
portion of taxpayer, you still need a taxpayer vote.
Yes. It's a delicate issue. And
Right.
right now, I would say that we're not really in the business of wanting to take on any of that head on because we're in that lead gifts portion of this campaign. If we can't identify some members of these communities where we have some extremely deep pockets, as I'm sure you're all very well aware, if we can't identify several lead gifts in the multi-millions of dollars, then we're not going to do this. Well, so we're trying to walk a little bit quietly
Okay.
while we do that.
So are you gonna have all that stuff in line in time to have this all get voted on
I
this
would,
fall?
I would think
Is
that,
that one, I'm sorry, you're voting this fall? Is that?
well, on the bond issue.
November is potentially the first
Okay.
time this thing could be looked at.
I can't speak certainly for the Board of Education. I am a member of the Board of Education. I'm kind of here representing this. I'm not sure even what that means. I mean, this is, in some sense, a separate 501c3 not-for-profit organization. I mean, it is. Southern Maine Center for the Visual and Performing Arts Incorporated, is separately incorporated, so that we have an entity that people who want to make significant gifts can gift, other than a public school system, because public school systems are not particularly attractive targets for major.
Well, somebody obviously already gave you some money to do this kind of stuff at one time,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And so how?
So when I say I can't speak for the board, I'm sorry, let me just finish this.
Sure.
It's a balancing act. My sense is that as we come through the summer into the early fall months, if we have a couple commitments for major gifts, that the RSU board will look at those major gift commitments and will look to our fundraising consultant, who is the vice president for development from the University of New Hampshire. Her name is Debbie Dutton. She lives in Kennebunk and has kids in the school district, and she's acting as our fundraising consultant on a pro bono basis. Before being at the University of New Hampshire, she was at Colby College. When she was at Colby, she raised money to build a new $25 million art museum at Colby. She's got experience. Okay. So I think what the board would be looking to is, with some major gifts and Debbie's counsel, that this is a project with a very high likelihood of success over a period of, let's say, 18 to 24 months of intensive fundraising, that the school board could then with confidence say, okay, we would like to request that $5 million of this project be bonded along with the proposal for the high school, and proceed. There's probably a banker in that mix too. This happened in Camden. Camden built nothing, it wasn't quite as ambitious as this, but similar. And essentially what happened, I believe, is Camden National Bank stepped in sort of the 11th hour, because all of the private fundraising wasn't done, and it wasn't all bonded through the school district, because it was a very similar proposition that they wanted private money to substantially build the asset. So Camden National stepped in and essentially provided the bridge loan that got the thing done. So sort of a private bonding. I would expect it to look like that. I would expect it to be a bit of a moving target. And then again, the important thing from the taxpayer's perspective is that they're not on the hook for anything in excess of what they bond to build this.
It's getting the word out to those people.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, because, I mean, to me, it's
Well, he's here.
well, I mean, but we're only the
We're
five
the first
people, but I
step.
mean, and I think everybody realizes, I mean, we're only $5 million commitment from the
Well, you
three
tell Doc.
communities, it's a no-brainer,
Right.
but.
Here are a couple other perspectives. Just the view toward the main entrance pulled a little bit further back than the earlier thing that you saw, and then a daytime view, and then again, this is an evening performance, some nighttime view. The coolest thing about working on this project for me was actually working with the architects, which is Harriman and Associates. Auburn, Portland, Manchester, New Hampshire, and discovering what capabilities now exist for putting a building into CAD and then just bringing it alive. I would also share some of the interior spaces. I talked a little bit about the cafe. Here we have standing sort of in the lobby or gallery of the main theater, looking through the cafe, across the Arts Commons at the high school itself behind it. So you get a sense of what that cafe is supposed to be about. That cafe is then attached to this lobby or gallery area. This, by the way, was something else that we did, is to design this gallery or lobby specifically for visual arts exhibitions. We would expect that to be a very prominent part of what this does. Again, the Spalding Center here in New Hampshire, they have sort of their house art, which hangs in the lobby when they don't have an exhibition, but they almost always have an exhibition running, which means art openings and so forth going on there. The kitchen area behind here for the cafe is planned to be a significant enough prep kitchen so that a local caterer, like Kitchen Chicks or something, can come in, set up and stage dinner for 200, set this up with tables, and do a lot of our fundraising, openings for musical events, openings for visual arts events, right here in this facility. So it's looking all the way through the process of having to continuously raise money and wanting to be able to bring events to raise that money into this building, the same place where we're educating people of all ages and making art and putting on performances. We get here a visual standing in the balcony of the theater, looking down at the main stage. And then here a cross-section of the theater. What can I say? Gallery space, main house seating, 600 seats, balcony, 300 seats. Again, large stage with full fly space, so any kind of a show that you would normally expect to be able to see at a Merrill or in Boston or in New York can be staged here. Storage space underneath the main stage itself. For those of you who love dance, a sprung floor on the main stage so that dance companies will actually come dance here. Professional dance company will not come and dance on a stage that doesn't have what's called a sprung floor, which is basically a squishy floor so their feet and their knees don't get destroyed. Wardrobe space back here, meaning a costume shop, green room, dressing rooms for men and women, or guys and gals. The school, that's the other thing, is all of these spaces, like the costume shop, the dressing rooms, the green room, these are all of a caliber that you would never apprehend in a high school. And the reason they are is because as we talked around with these arts partners about what do you have to do, you have to provide this stuff or you can't get professionals to come. Many contracts say that if, I'm an old guy, so I can only think of like old guys saying,
Ira, give him a name.
give me a name.
What, like a current officer?
Yeah, is going to do a show. Often the contract will say, okay, well, I need a private dressing room. The private dressing room has to have a shower and it has to have a piano.
Talking about contract writers.
Contract. Yeah.
Writers.
Yeah. Yeah.
The famous writer.
Yeah.
Only green M&Ms and
Right.
Yeah.
The only green M&M.
9 exactly, 7-Ups.
Well, there's the guy, Eminem. If Eminem.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, but the beauty of this is in building these assets with primarily donated funds, the community and the kids are going to grow up in a space that has stuff that they would normally never expect to have in high school. Now, there is a question which you may have, which you may not. You know, why the hell did I care about this? And you know, I'm a bit of a thespian, a bit of a musician, a bit of an actor, a bit of a lot of things. And my personal history goes all the way back to something called the Interlochen Arts Academy in northern Michigan. I'm actually from Michigan. And Interlochen is the most magical place in the world. It is a place that was carved out of the woods in nowhere, Michigan, way further away from civilization than we are from, say, the Boston market or the Portland market. And to give very talented, gifted kids all the tools they need to create, whether it's visual art, whether it's performing art, whether it's, fine woodworking, find what you want to be art is an amazing thing, because kids have just no inhibitions and no known boundaries on their talents. What they generally lack is encouragement, they generally lack tools, they generally lack spaces. But we're fortunate to live in the kinds of communities that, if we find the right buttons, can afford to provide those spaces in ways that many communities can't even consider. And we can potentially do that without laying this on the shoulders of the taxpayers, which nobody wants. We're loud, we hear that loud and clear.
So,
Yeah, it sounds
Could you
awesome.
speak a little bit about what your thoughts might be on how this could have an economic impact? This is the economic development committee here. What impact would you, in your wildest dreams, or even your unwildest dreams, see on the region?
I think that probably that document, which is our prospectus for this, it's not the business plan, just the prospectus. So it develops the concept and gives you some sense of what it can be. That probably has a small economic impact statement in it. The interesting thing is that my company, Digital Research, actually does economic impact analysis as part of our consulting to travel and tourism entities. For example, we're the consultant of record to the Maine Office of Tourism. We do all of their research. So we do economic impact analysis of things like this. We call them destinations in the travel and tourism business. And so you can easily look at immediate sort of, $500,000 impact in terms of food, lodging, gas. But the secondary and tertiary impacts are that you create magnet school for the arts. That you, rather than having sort of the tumble-down Kennebunk High School, you have the premier performance space in northern New England and a magnet school for the arts, and people choose to move to Kennebunk, to Arundel, to Kennebunkport, so that their kids can attend this school, or that they tuition their kids into the school, because they can't get an arts education like this in any other public school in southern Maine.
It's too close for us to, in what time or when it's even more beneficial if we could bring those students out of Thornton Academy, or, instead of paying tuition, it would be less of a burden on.
So people like what you're saying, if you're people who might think about Michigan, perhaps, Interlaken, could also consider this and say, hey, let's move up
Absolutely.
here.
The long run for this is summer programs.
Because people move where their kids draw them to.
But even our own
Many.
students.
Yeah, well, for our kids here.
They're going,
Yeah.
tuition to soccer.
Right.
Well, the non-school performance is going on year-round with the huge drivers for the
Right.
restaurants and lodging establishments.
Bingo. So you have, let's just stick with the Portland Symphony because it's simple. So currently they do Sunday afternoons, Tuesday nights. So let's say that we are wildly successful, the partnership flourishes, and they do Wednesday nights in Kennebunk. So 6 times a year at 7:30 or 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night, we have 900 people coming here. They're all going to, a lot of them are going to want to eat somewhere. So you look at the current restaurant offerings around here within 5, 6, 7 miles of here, that is only going to grow. Because pretty soon Village Tavern on that first Wednesday night isn't going to be able to feed them.
That's right.
Right? And Duffy's. And, Owen's Farmhouse Pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to walk that fine line between the reality of this being that it can be an engine of economic and community development and make these communities the kinds of places that we want to live and that our kids want to live and that other people want to live and that people want to visit even more than they already do. I don't want to walk the fine line between that and standing here promising you the rainbow, because that ain't going to happen either. Right?
Right. But it does improve things in that, in a 12-month sense.
Yeah. Well, we have, one of our other partners is Ogunquit Playhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, Ogunquit, and all of that, their artistic director and basically their entire management came up and spent an afternoon in my conference room with us talking about this project. And, you know, again, many of these organizations are wait and see, but they're quite willing to bare their soul. That building is on the National Register of Historic Places. They can't winterize. So Ogunquit Playhouse, no matter how much they want to offer theater 12 months of the year, can't do it in that building. So we give them a building to, in say, December, January, February, March, run 1 week long runs of 4 shows. So it's sort of a smaller version of what they do in the summer. It beats them having to figure out how to build a $15 million theater on the campus of the theater they already have. And we have no desire to pilfer anybody's brand or put anybody out of business. That's why we call them the arts partners. I want River Tree Arts to be the principal provider of community arts education. I want the PSL to be the symphony orchestra. I want Ogunquit Playhouse to do long-run shows in cold months because we have a warm theater they can do it.
So what's the actual estimated cost on this?
25 million.
25 million?
And so you feel pretty confident you're going to raise the 20?
Yeah. Given,
I mean, given who you talk, you must have talked to enough
Yeah.
people at this point that
Yeah.
you must know what.
you know, a little bit the stars have to align. And by that I mean, not only do the stars need to align a little bit in terms of hitting the right people for those major gifts, but the stars have to align in terms of the patience, involvement, and support of the communities in the school district to make a leap of faith that something extraordinary requires us to maybe think a little bit differently than we're used to thinking, so that this money is going to have to be raised over 18 to 24 months, and that as long as we have some significant gifts at the outset, shouldn't prevent us as a community from proceeding with needed renovations to the schools and to believing that, as our fundraising consultants have advised us, these communities can support that, but you probably can't do it in 30 to 60 days. You probably need 18 to 24 months. So I would never claim it's easy. I would never tell you it's a slam dunk. I never promise it's going to happen.
But
But
just
I
to
can-
play devil's advocate here, we pass a budget or the bonds to do the renovations to the high school with no theater, no whatever, no all the stuff that's going to be in this, and then this doesn't happen, and they're already building the high school.
What I can tell you,
Sounds.
thank God we're not on camera, is that in a sealed envelope taped to the bottom side of a desk somewhere in RSU 21, there is a plan for how the needed renovations can proceed with the bonded money, even if somehow this doesn't quite work.
Okay.
And people in our positions of responsibility, I'm talking about the school board, couldn't afford to proceed otherwise.
Well, I figured it.
But it isn't worth our talking about what's in that envelope taped to the underside of that desk, because that undermines the ability to succeed at getting the prize that would really be the transformational thing for the communities.
But I was, I was sold when you said 20 million from private funds and 5 million from the school, and it's gonna possibly save us money. I was already sold on it when you showed me the first picture and 2 minutes into what you had to say, just based on the fact that it's a great opportunity for the school and for the school district. And I mean, you honestly ask for any more from private funding and all that kind of stuff. So and that's fantastic. Though something like that in the area would just be great. Like you said, I'm just people are gonna ask me questions if I'm out there trying to help clear the air and get people on board with it and make sure people understand. Because if I thought of it, somebody else is going to think of it, and they're going to ask me that question, and I don't want to be like, I guess we'll just have no school, no band room for the kids, and if it falls apart, I mean. So.
And the other thing, which is, this is an unavoidable thing, because we're here in Rutland. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, personally, Kennebunk High School, Southern Maine Center for the Visual and Performing Arts, Thornton Academy, live and let live. The families of Arundel will forevermore have a choice on which school district to send their kids to. And they should make that choice in their hearts and minds and send their kids where they want to send them. This is in no way sort of an attempt to,
No, but I think it'll be
battle.
Right, it won't,
Reopen those
but
waters.
I think it'll make
I-
a huge difference going forward.
The
because
idea here is what can three civic-minded communities working together, Arundel, Kennebunk, and Kennebunkport, do together to make an extraordinary asset for not just the kids, but all the members of the community, and in some sense, all of Southern Maine. And it isn't trying to take anything away from anybody, and it is what it is.
Are you saying that based on something that I just said? Or?
Nope.
Oh,
It's just think of it, because I normally don't think of that. But I mean, for example, Thornton Academy has a great strings program. I actually know this because my younger daughter's a violinist. She's last year was third chair in the Portland Youth Symphony, so she's a pretty good violinist. We live in Kennebunkport, so she's gone to Kennebunk High, and all of her violin playing has had to happen outside the school district because currently Kennebunk doesn't have an orchestra. They don't have a string program. Thornton has a great string program. There are 21, 22, 23, 25 string players. It's not a bad string program. So my point is, even using that specific example, I'm not interested in competing with that. We're just interested in doing something for this community. And if we're successful in doing it, we're going to end up with a high school that has a string program in it, so future generations of kids like mine will have an orchestra to play in at the school that they go to. What that means is that suddenly all the residents of Arundel whose kids are good musicians, and whether or not you guys know it, there are some brilliant musicians in Arundel who I know of because of my involvement with Portland Youth Symphony and other groups in Maine. They'll have their choice of where they want to go. To a great string program at Thornton, to what will probably be a pretty good string program here. Just like everything else. It's kind of, when you get through all the stuff, it's kind of cool to be in the unique position of a community of being able to choose where you actually want to send your kids.
I have a question about the magnet school concept. I find that intriguing. Have you folks given any thought to how to expand the magnet school program, including obviously the need, if we are really aggressive about providing living accommodations? And living accommodations like Franklin Thornton does right now.
Yeah.
Has there been any planning for that? Is there any consideration of that, or is that really not?
There's no, let me say this, no planning. Let me say this again for the camera. No planning for a dormitory. There is a spot on the site of the renovated high school that would be perfect for a dormitory, and that spot will be specifically left unbuilt because it would be perfect for a speculative dormitory. Kennebunk High School now is in the process of building its tuition and international program, and Andrew Dolph actually strongly believes that the international program at Kennebunk should be truly international, and that he would not like us to have 50 kids from mainland China, but rather 50 kids from a lot of different places, so that we're not creating essentially, a secondary subculture on our campus, but creating an international school where students come to this country to live and learn together, which I personally think is a deficiency of the Thornton model. But that's a very personal feeling. I think an international program. Well, it's for dollars and cents, touchdown. For what you're really doing educationally, I'm not sure. I'm happy to leave this copy of the prospectus here.
Is it? Give us?
I showed you that,
Yes.
yes. It's not
I think
just-
we have.
Again, we're not papering the town with those because we're still in the sort of quiet phase of trying to see if we can generate these lead gifts. But obviously, you can't be doing something like this and be completely secretive either.
Right.
Sorry. You're very generous of your time and how busy you are to come here and speak to us and introduce this to us. What are your expectations from this meeting as far as this group, this committee? What do you want from us? What do you hope for from us?
Oh, what I hope is that that you guys will discuss this and that you'll flesh out the notion of how this kind of a project can bring some economic vitality to your own community, which ultimately is all you're really responsible for, and that you will ultimately communicate that in the ways that you communicate to your Board of Selectmen, and that you will encourage your selectmen and your town to be supportive of something that could be very transformational for the RSU, the 3 communities, and the region. And if you got $1 million that you're not using,
Just happen
then
to
take that.
Any other questions?
So this was an initial type thing. I was gonna blast it on Facebook that you were gonna be here tonight. We decided against that.
There you go. That's the crowd.
It's that,
We generally don't get large crowds. at
yeah, we
these
never,
meetings.
are you, when is a good time to start, involving more community about this?
I think you can quietly talk it around.
I don't understand that concept of quietly talk.
Well, if we really wanted,
You're either talking or
if we
not.
really wanted this to be front and center, it would be pretty easy to go to the Star and the Post with press releases and to make this project front and center. Then we would spend a lot of every day fending off flack and attacks from a community that either wasn't adequately informed or was choosing not to be or was
Or
simply
misled.
being obstructionist. So when I say quietly, I think we're just kind of proceeding, and
Okay.
we're not trying to keep it a secret from anybody, but if Jennifer Fields were here from the Star and said, do you have another copy of that? I'd say, gee, I only brought one tonight. I'm leaving it with this Economic Development Committee. Maybe you can come into the office and look at it. So just a little quiet.
A little quiet.
So maybe when it gets closer to the vote, would you consider coming back and speaking to
Oh, yeah.
it?
I think
We used to get a public
as
forum
we get
together.
close to the vote, it's going, as you pointed out, it's going to be critical that people understand what this proposition is
Yes.
and what that $5 million is.
Right.
Personally, do I think November is a little ambitious for all of the education to take place?
Okay, so.
Probably.
Okay.
But I don't control that either.
No, I just didn't know, when you started doing your presentations, if you are having RSU, I just didn't know if you could possibly, do a Rundle.
I suspect if the time and opportunity were right,
Yeah.
you would do it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I suspect that as we near some sort of a vote, I suspect the dog and pony shows will move into high gear for everything, for the proposed, essentially rebuilding of this building. I mean, there won't be much left of, it will pretty much be new. But basically selling the residents of Arundel on the importance of coming out and voting. And voting yes. I mean, God knows why if you're going to get a $12 million school, you come out and vote no. Taxes, I guess, is the answer to that. Sorry. But I mean, it will be extremely important in that process, and I'm stepping back from this now, I'm talking about the bond issue, for voters in Arundel and Kennebunkport to understand the importance of coming out to vote not just for the high school, which is sorely needed by all three communities that are part of the RSU, but because these communities stand to actually have elementary schools that will support what's going on here for the next 30 to 50 years.
So, okay. But this, without the bond issue passing, I mean, the bond issue's gotta happen.
Yeah, we need the bond issue to proceed with this. It's kind of, I've never thought of this before, it's perverse in a way. The bond issue not passing one time would give actually us more time to raise the private portion of this. And in many ways, I think the closer we are to this being a reality, the more likely it is the bond issue.
So at any time, you're just gonna say, hey, we got all the money that we need. No?
You are.
That's what's gonna happen.
I hope it's tomorrow. Because I would love to be doing this, and you know, those of us on the sort of founding members of the board, which are Andrew, Dolph,
Yeah.
and Sue Cressy, and Rob Spalding, and Tracy Gear and myself are the 5 original board members of the Southern Maine Center. There's nothing more that we would like than to be actually out talking to everybody in all 3 towns about the potential this has to transform our communities. We just aren't quite comfortable telling everybody yet.
I think everybody has to realize that this would benefit the community that they live in. It's just, they're just scared they're gonna.
Hopefully we'll tell enough people and have that
Right? That
attitude.
basically what it comes down. I mean, obviously,
It seems like a no-brainer, but
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
Thank you very, very much.
I really appreciate the chance to talk to you guys about it. We trying to talk to the Economic Development Group in Kennebunk, and then next week we're actually going to kind of go through the Kennebunkport Business Association as a way of informing Kennebunkport, because it doesn't have a formal economic development committee. So by next Wednesday, all 3 towns will have, through the economic development groups, been given sort of a preview of what we hope to accomplish.
So have you not spoken to any other committees or groups within this town other than like the school board people?
Correct.
chamber.
The chamber is aware, and we, fortunately, because my company is involved in state-level tourism, we have many opportunities to see Suzanne, to see Suzanne, like at the governor's conference. Tracy Gear and I, one of the other directors, sat with Suzanne probably the first night of the governor's conference and sort of talked her through this before we even had anything like this to show her. So Suzanne should be fairly well read in. We probably ought to walk down Water Street and give her one of those nice glossy brochures. I'm not sure she's ever gotten one of those.
Have like principals and schools and different things like that, they've been, Dr. Crowley.
Yeah, Dr. Crowley should be aware. He probably doesn't have a glossy, he might. It's been, but, this, the board of the Southern Maine Center works together with a steering committee from the RSU, which grew out of the building committee for the high school. So there's no sense in which the school district isn't constantly involved in this process. In fact, we have, all of our meetings now are joint meetings, the board of directors and the steering committee. It was originally developed to explore this concept before we got to the point where we had a separate corporation. So,
going lightly, but it seems to me that, you just come right out and let people know, then there won't be any of these, misconceptions that they're expecting the town, the taxpayer to
Yeah,
pay
but
for
then
this.
come the questions, how much funding do you have in hand and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
There's still being started.
You were hearing that the people expect the town to pay for the whole thing? Where did you hear that?
when the whole RSU vote was going on, oh, yeah, we're staying here, they're gonna pay for it, they're gonna make us pay for it.
Yeah, it was.
It was, a lot of people were saying it,
I mean, this
We're
thing
on
was
Facebook.
barely even thought of at that point when the RSU stuff was all happening. But it was talked about. We're talking about this huge performing arts center. And they
these
wanna
people really
add 10
believed
million
that
to
they
our
were
budget.
paying for that performing arts
We
center.
have been fighting another war.
well, I'm always open to talk further about strategies for communication.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I have done a lot of things in business, but I haven't necessarily ever done this, and so I will accept the responsibility for having made misjudgments and missteps in how this was unveiled and released and proposed to the communities.
I'm not saying it was not done correctly,
No,
all
I
I'm
know,
saying
but
is,
I mean,
how do we fix it so that everybody's on the right path now?
And it's a constant, and that's my point, constant judgment call. And, I think we're doing the best we can with the judgment of being a little soft now.
I would agree with Linda in the sense that word is on the street that this is going to be out there, that it's going to be proposed, but there's no real facts about how it's going to go down. Everything I've heard up until this point has been so many different numbers that are way off base.
Right.
So,
Five.
right, no, and that's great. $20 million, $25 million cost, $5 million from the RSU. I mean, that's awesome, but that's not that's not what's out there. So hopefully that
I
information will
appreciate
get
hearing that
verified.
from you. Because we know we'll have to combat the misinformation.
Yeah.
I think the point is that the sooner you can get out there with some simple, clear, as factual as it can be information, the better off you're going to be. Just that'll dampen these fires of.
Well, and I would even say the first thing I read, I flew through that glossy, I didn't read the whole thing, but, the first thing you read is that you're looking for 25 million, but it doesn't break down when you were looking for 20 million from private funds and 5 million from the RSU. It doesn't say that anywhere that I saw in there. Does it, or?
I don't even remember. Doesn't.
Can you?
Just a clear factual.
Well, the reason that I pointed it out is because the way that you read this first paragraph, it almost sounds like you're looking for 25 million from, let's see here, funding. The capital cost will be approximately 25 million. Such an ambitious project benefits from the relationship with an anchor tenant, RSU 21. And then it doesn't. And then it says the fundraising strategy is laid out in a separate document, the plan for payments.
Right.
And then it says lead gifts, community campaign, and sustaining the vision, but it doesn't break down any that I could see. That you're only looking for 5 from the RSU, which could
So-
be dangerous to float those glossies out there without the actual funding sheet that mentions in there to go along with it. So
Good point.
I just don't want people to get scared of it before they can embrace the idea of actually enjoying it, which worries me.
What would we tell people if, when we're having a quiet conversation about $5 million is coming from the RSU, because the other 20 million is being raised from, private, and we say, well, what if they only raise 10? What's the other 10 million come?
I think the answer is we're going to raise 20.
They're gonna say, no, it's gonna go back on the taxpayer, they're gonna expect us to come up with a difference. I wanna be able to combat that conversation.
I don't know how to combat that.
You had some sort of feasibility study probably that suggests that 20 is attainable.
Yeah.
And so they They're not just pulling.
Right,
I
you wouldn't be
agree.
wasting your time if you didn't.
No,
listen to it.
and they've
Right.
hired a
It's very hard to
consultant who
combat
believes
the
it can be done.
fear of any particular community member that a project will fall short and the taxpayers will bear the ugly burden. There's almost nothing you can say to that, other than, well, gee, we hope that doesn't happen. That's certainly not the plan. And that's the honest to God truth.
But you're not flying on faith alone. They've
Yes.
done, they're fact
Confident about
findings.
that.
There's
Mr. Bellamy
some-
said so.
Informed,
It's not like you're just chucking the feeder out there because
yes,
you want to.
yes.
This would be awesome, so we really hope it works.
Yeah. Yeah, some old acting coach once said, hope is not a plan.
What do you see offhand in terms of the long-term impact on them?
Oh, I think you laid out some pretty good options as far, opinions as far as what we could possibly see from an economic standpoint for the town, and I just think there's so many benefits to it all across the shore. I'm so like that's awesome. Economic standpoint aside, I mean, which it's not going to hurt the town, no matter how you look at it economically. It's only going to help.
Oh, it's
So,
it's
you know,
definitely.
whether you can lay out all the benefits for it now across the board or not, I mean, it's certainly not going to hurt to have something like that in your town to spur the economic development. No matter how you look at it, right?
Right.
Can't be negative.
And location, I mean, it's,
Yeah, it's awesome.
it's,
Right on the highway. Plus, they get a new football field and all that good stuff.
Well, I mean,
Tennis
being a
is-
mother of three
That's good
and
stuff.
being in a total of 4 different school systems technically, never once leaving the town of Arundel. I think having more options for your children is vital to their success. Not on every child, you know, does well with the arts. Not every child does, you know what I mean? You have to have,
absolutely.
and, you know, when you were mentioning that, then it's so vital that there's every opportunity for them.
My girls are both musicians, and they're also both swimmers, and one played lacrosse, and one played a little basketball and a little lacrosse. You know, I want them to do everything. I really do. I wanted, there was a sort of short-lived sense that there might be a pool in the future. That's dead, dead, dead. I was one of the people on the high school building committee who thought the best thing we could do is to leave the location in the high school plan specifically for that pool. Because I believe we're going to succeed at this. I believe we're going to build this. And I believe when we have this capital campaign under our belts as a community, that it will be relatively easy for us to loop back and to raise a much lesser amount of money to have a municipal pool as part of our high school campus. But that's my personal. Can't do it all at once, because then things compete with each other. Anything like that. I mean, you look at, go up to, I'm changing the subject completely, but you look at the impact of a pool on a community, go up to Cape Elizabeth, and look at how that pool at the high school, which is really treated as a municipal asset, creates a sense of community in Cape Elizabeth. It's phenomenal. So I'm not a guy who, I love the arts and I'm a great promoter of the arts, but it's all needed and essential and will be used. People will use it at different times and points in their lives. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. I don't know, like I'm a snowmobiler. I've been in and out of snowmobiling for 40 years. You know, there have been 5, 6, 7, 10-year periods where I didn't go at all. And then all of a sudden I go, well, I don't know why the hell I'm not doing that. And I go buy 2 new sleds and I start again. I think it's the same with everything, you know? You could wake up one morning when you're 60 and decide, you know, I need to start swimming. You got a place to swim.
I think you'll be very pleased with the design of the integration of the high school as a separate building. I think you'll see that it fits well. It's,
Same firm.
Same architect, and they've done a good job with the design of the high school as well. Those plans will all be flowing out here this fall for public meetings in every town.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate your time. You're giving us a lot to think about.
Cool. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah.
Vote early and often.
We're not having any sort of meeting amongst us, are we, or?
Nope, that's the only agenda item.
I haven't cooked supper yet. Oh, do we have to adjourn?
Yes, you have
Make a
to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn?
Yes. Motion made and second.
Also formal.
Okay.
I do have a question about the next meeting.